This is the plaintiff, Brian Gibbons. He says he purchased a car from the defendant, and the guy deceived him into thinking the car was roadworthy. The flim-flam scam man purchased the car at Clunker Junker and then sold it to him as a drivable car, which it wasn't. He's suing for $7,000, the amount he's now out. This is the defendant, Alvaro Gavea. He says he sold the plaintiff a car with over 125,000 miles on it. He told the guy before the sale there's no warranty on it. And he said he didn't care and bought the car. Owe him a full refund all these months later? No way. He's accused of being full of deceit.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says he was duped by the defendant when he bought a car from him because the car, he says, was not roadworthy. But the defendant says he sold the car with no warranty. The guy didn't care it had 125,000 miles on it. And now he just has buyer's remorse. It's the case of you are corrupt.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Gibbons, you are suing Mr. Guvea's auto sales dealership for $7,000. You say you're actually out more that in damages because he sold you a lemon. Talk to me. Tell me what happened.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I saw an ad on Facebook for a car, a 2007 Chrysler Pacifica. I sent Mr. Gouveia a message. He described it to me that it was his everyday driver.
Okay.
That he drove the car personally and that's how he knew the car was reliable. My girlfriend has 3 children, and it was just something that, if we needed to get around, I told him, I said, hey, I've had problems in the past when I bought used cars. I'm looking for something that I can trust. It's reliable, that, it runs, it's safe, it will get us where we're going. And it wasn't a ton of money, so I didn't expect, a perfect car. It's not a new car. It was a used car, and I knew that.
And what happens?
So the very next day after I purchased the car, I noticed that what was happening was the RPMs were revving.
Wait, before that, in your complaint, you say that when you were about to buy it, it wouldn't start. Is that correct?
Yes, and that was something that he explained to me, that the car, the battery just needed some time to...
Is that just about the time you decided I just have to have this car when I go and to test drive it and it won't start? That was just too enticing for you to pass up? What are you, a tire kicker? Oh, it's pretty. The car won't start and you're complaining because a car is not a reliable car, but it's so pretty. I mean, come on. Where did you go look at the car? At a dealership or at his house?
I met him at the dealership and then we drove to his house.
And then when you go to turn it on, it won't turn on. He jumps it. Then he says, go for a long drive and charge the battery. So you drove it around and he's in the passenger seat. And how long are you doing that?
We just went for a fairly short drive, maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so. We went around his neighborhood.
All right. So then what happens? You buy the car and for $1,950. The car has 125,000 plus miles on it. Do you get a bill of sale?
Yes.
So then what happens? What's the first thing that goes wrong?
The day after I purchased the car, it again needed to be jump-started, but he did say that, there's a potential that you might have to get a battery.
Okay.
And he agreed to that. The original deal was for $2,000, and then he said, I'll take $50 off of it, and you can go buy your own battery. I'll basically split a battery with you.
Okay.
So the next day, what was happening was I had tried to drive the car up on the highway. I was going to take it and get it inspected and registered and whatnot. And the car was revving up to very high RPMs, but not shifting. It wasn't kicking into the next gear. And I just immediately got on the phone and called him.
Now, it hadn't been doing that the day before, right?
Not at all.
Okay. So go on.
So I called him and I said, hey, I don't know what's the matter with the transmission, but I'm going to bring it up to you. I'm going to bring it to your dealership, to the lot. And he said, okay, I'll meet you there. And
to have him look at it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, to try to figure out what was going on. So I brought it right to him, and he met me outside, and he basically jumped in the car. Now, also, in the time from when I had these issues to when I got there, the check engine light came on. So when I got there, I said, hey, the check engine light's on in this car. The transmission's not shifting gears. What's going on with this thing? Just got it from you yesterday. And he said, nothing's wrong with it. Let's go for a ride. And he got into the driver's seat, said, hop in the car. And we drove it down the street. He basically put the kind of put the gas pedal to the floor and said, it seems like it's driving okay to me. We're going, 25, 30 miles an hour. I said, well, yeah, can't hear the noise that it's making. It's whining. And the RPMs, you're on a side street and it's up to 5 RPMs. I mean, you can hear that it wasn't running right. It was definitely an issue. So what he did was we drove over the next street. There was a transmission shop. And he said, this is the guy that fixed the transmission for me before I sold it to you. And I said, well, I asked you if you had any mechanical issues. And now you're telling me that you brought it to a transmission shop and what do you mean they fixed it? So we got there. He went inside. I stayed outside the shop.
Oh, bad idea. I would accompany him right in there so he doesn't have a chance to say anything to him. Go ahead.
Right. So this person came out and all he said was, yeah, what's the matter? I looked at this car. There's nothing wrong with it. And I said, well, you don't even know what's going on. You don't even know what I'm saying. I haven't told you anything yet. What do you mean there's nothing going on?
Mr. Gouveia, will you please tell me what was the point of taking it to a transmission guy who won't listen to the transmission?
Your Honor, first of all, this man's lying like crazy. But let me explain to you.
Just answer my question. Did your transmission guy that you took it to get in the car and drive the car?
I did not talk to a transmission guy. This man come to me and he says, I took this car to my mechanic, and my mechanic told me that the transmission has overflow, has more oil than supposed to.
Okay, so hold on. Then let me back up and let me ask a different question. So you take the car to a different mechanic when?
Within 10 minutes of us leaving that transmission shop, I drove it to the garage I've taken my cars to for years.
Okay. And that person, do they write out a report?
They didn't. They said, you just bought this car yesterday, take it back. He said, I can charge you whatever you want. He said, if you want me to go over this and tell you that whatever the problem is, he said, I can do that, but I'm going to charge you for it. It's probably $200.
So you have nothing from another mechanic saying anything. It's just you telling me what a mechanic told you, but you have no evidence from another mechanic.
Later on, I did. Not from the mechanic I brought it to that day after.
So that's fine. So when do you get a report from a mechanic?
So on January 18th, I took the car to get it inspected.
Okay.
And it failed inspection.
Indeed it did. Failed an emissions test.
And then it says on the second page there, your vehicle has failed its emissions test due to a problem with the engine or emission control system found in the onboard diagnostic system.
So when did you buy the car? What date?
On January 13th.
So that is 6 days later. And what do you do when you receive this failed inspection? What do you do?
I told him I want my money back.
So, Mr. Gouveia, when he tells you, I want my money back at failed inspection, what do you tell him?
He told me the failed inspection for emissions. So for emissions, ask him to check with somebody to know exactly what it is, or bring it to me. So he never brought it to me. He brought it to another mechanic.
I don't care what's wrong with it. I care that it failed inspection. So did he tell you he wanted his money back?
No, he never said that. He says he told me that the car failed inspection. I told him bring it to somebody to know exactly what it is. Well, bring it to me, and I'm gonna take care of that.
So you tell him go take it to either my place or a place and find out what's needed. Do you hear from him after he does that? Does he do that? Does he take it to a place and then let you know what they said?
He told me that was the whatever the code was, which is a C045, whatever that is, was a Cadillac converter. So what I did, I purchased...
Okay, Mr. Gibbons, did you take it to another shop after the failure?
Yes, eventually. And I,
What's eventually?
Did I wait too long?
Eventually is the problem we're having, Mr. Gibbons. When you say eventually, when is eventually? February 28th?
No, I had brought it to my own mechanic who just said
Do you have
there's
any
a problem with the
evidence that your mechanic said return the car? Because I asked you that at the beginning of the trial, and it's not hard for you to get, you just said I have nothing in writing. Do you have an affidavit from that mechanic who said you need to return this car, this is a problem? Do you have anything?
I don't.
Okay, so now I need to know between the failure of inspection on the 18th and your demand letter, did you take it to a mechanic?
Yes.
The demand letter isn't until the end of March, correct?
I sent it to him on March 16th.
Middle of March. And the mechanic you took it to inspected that car. Is there anything in writing about his findings and when that would have been?
The soonest that I actually was able to get somebody to write me a printout is when I took it February 28th back to the person who did the inspection. I mean, to be completely honest with you, I was working, and between having a family, it was like I was doing things when I could. I was bringing it to the mechanic. I was saying, well, how do I get my money back from this guy? It's not running. Well, what I ended up doing was, it was a part of buying a car that was originally owned by someone in New Hampshire. They give you something called a dealer's reassignment. And I noticed that had the name, the Clunker Junker, as being the person that owned it before Mr. Gouveia.
When did you notice that?
What's funny is that my mother, who was with me the night that I bought the car, asked him, who's the Clunker Junker? And he started to get kind of upset, and he said, "The Clunker Junker, you want to deal with it? You deal with it yourself.
Why
we got to
would you
go.
buy a
My
car
son's
that
coming."
didn't, you described the scenario, and I'm not understanding why you bought the car, because it wouldn't start when you started it. You see on the title, your mother points out it's the Clunker Junker. He's rude about it and says, if you want to know, you call him. So why buy the car if all that happened?
He handed me this after I already signed the,
So did you call the Clunker Junker that day like he invited you to?
Yes.
And what happened?
Yes, absolutely. So I read them the VIN number, and someone said, this car was sold to this person, Al Gouveia, as a parts car, that this particular vehicle. So what they do is if you go on their website, it literally says, we buy junk cars. So what they did was they said, when we take a car in, somebody calls us, and we go and we inspect the car. We sent a person to inspect it out. That car was deemed not roadworthy.
Right.
That it had
so
a
tell me about that,
issue,
Mr. Gouveia.
an engine issue.
Okay. Doesn't matter where that I bought the car from. I'm a dealer license. I'm the owner. I work very hard for what I have. I moved to the United States. I was 20 years old. I never had no school. The only thing I did was working, all right? So I am a dealer license. I have a small dealership. I am the owner. I can buy cars any way I want, and I can sell it to whatever I want it.
No, Mr. Gouveia, did you do any repairs to this car after you bought it?
Welcome back to the People's Court. The plaintiff says that he bought a car from the defendant that turned out to be a clunker, but the defendant says that the guy is just having a bad case of buyer's remorse. Let's go back into the courtroom.
What repairs that I did was changing the oils, was the ball joints, and I believe was 2 new tires. That's the only thing I did.
He says that you took him to the guy down the road who had fixed a transmission?
Oh, he's lying.
Okay. What had the guy down the road done?
Nothing to the car.
Okay. So what were you going down the road for?
No, this man come to me and he says that he checked the car with the mechanic, and the mechanic told him that the transmission level was overflow. So I said, buddy, the transmission, we check all the oils before I sealed the car, and I drove this car.
So the reason can you just answer my question? So the reason you drove to the guy down the block was to have that guy check the fluids?
Correct.
Okay. All right, Mr. Gibbons, you're suing for $7,000 for a car that you paid $1,950. So you're suing for treble damages because I guess you're trying to say that this is fraud. Then you're suing also again for another $1,950 for tax tag, title fee, miscellaneous costs of $650, which you've trebled into $1,950. Do you have any proof of these things?
Yes, I submitted the bills just as far as, those costs and whatnot.
Okay. And then you're also suing for storage fees, $5 a day for 1 year, from April 1st, 2020 to April 1st, 2021. Tell me about that.
So what I did after the car had these issues where it completely, and I submitted that, it was on February 28th, but the report from the station where I brought it to says, customer reports hearing strange knocking noises from engine area. Check noise, seems like engine gone bad.
Mr. Gibbons, you have proven beyond and to the exclusion of every shadow of a doubt that the thing failed inspection within the 7 days. You know what my problem is, right? My problem is that you have a step 2 to be protected. The step 2 is you need to prove to me that you notified the seller that you wanted your money back. And it is your word against him on that. So I'd love to see one stitch of evidence that you, between day 7 and 14, demanded your money back. Because unless you did, I can't help you. You see that, right?
That's the thing. Outside of calling him and saying the car's not running right,
Why?
I want my money back in the Attorney General's
If you're a guy who took business
office.
law classes and you claim to be on this like white on rice from the beginning, then you know that you have to prove that you demanded your money back. Where are you demanding your money back? Where? All I need is a text that says, I want my money back. Do you have that?
I don't, because again, the Attorney General's office said
Mr.
you
Gibbons,
have
we're
to give him a
done. We're
reasonable amount
done.
of time
I
to
want to
fix
help
it.
you so bad that I have spent so much time trying to help you, finding anything that will help you. Anything. But when I've got a case where you have a failed inspection on January 18th and the next activity is February 28th, I can't dispense with the second part of it. See, you got a call to make in day 7, between day 7 and day 14. And the call you got to make, the decision you got to make is, do I want my money back and do I want to return this car? Or do I want to work it out with him and get to some kind of settlement or something and keep the car? Because it's so pretty. Even though it doesn't start when I go to test drive it, it's so pretty. So if that, I've got to see, what's this guy really thinking? Well, where's all the activity? It's all in March. I think you're thinking it's so pretty.
I called him every day.
I don't care
called
how
him
much
every
you
day.
called him.
And what I also did,
you
in
have
addition to
that?
calling him, was showing up
Mira,
at
me
the
pica
dealership.
aquí y me rascas aquí. It itches me here and you're scratching me here. I'm asking a very specific question. Don't go on to the next thing. Tell me if you have any evidence of calling him every day from January 18th when the failure was until March 2nd when you file a complaint, or until March 16th when you finally send notice that you want your money back.
Well, I was calling him every day, January 17th, 20th, 15th. The
No, go
dates
past
go in
the 20th.
reverse.
Go past the
When
20th.
you're looking at it.
Go past the 20th. The failure's
that's
the
all I
18th.
printed out.
What I would need in any event is proof that you demand your money. And the first time you do that is in March. So you have failed the second prong of the test. Therefore, you can't get the car returned under I failed emissions in the first 7 days because you're not showing me any proof. In fact, indeed, everything points to the opposite, that you wanted to keep the car, that you're driving the car, and that you don't even take it to another mechanic until the 28th of February. So where are we? Now we're just under regular warranty law. It's a used car. It has more than 100,000 miles on it. And you don't have a warranty on this car. It is a warranty-less car. So based on the evidence that I have in front of me, not only can I not award you $7,000 for a car you paid $1,950 for, nor can I award you $1,825 in storage fees. Okay? I cannot award you 1 penny, and my verdict in this case is for the defendant.
One thing you should know is even if somebody says, I'm only going to sell this to you as is, you can still ask for a warranty. And it could be as simple as, I want a 30-day warranty on major parts, and you can define what those parts are. That's the ball game, folks, because if you don't do that, you take your chances.
I left my snowblower in my friend's garage, and the first night it was left there, it got stolen. And by the way, it was the only thing stolen. Can I sue him?
Wow. And those are all the facts. We don't know why they left him in the neighbor's garage.
We don't know if it's a $500 snowblower or a $3,000 snowblower. We don't know any details other than...
Was he paying the neighbor to guard his snowblower?
Gratuitous. Convenience.
Okay, well, you're the expert on bailments, so why don't you tell us?
That. So in this instance, what you would have is what we call a gratuitous bailment, where...
Meaning that it's not for hire, like a valet, where you're paying them to...
Right. Your friend is not getting any benefit for keeping it in the garage. It just happens to be there. But the degree of proof that you need on the type of negligence would depend on the kind of bailment. I mean, a gratuitous bailment like that, you probably would have to show gross negligence, something beyond just...
Yeah,
the guy's not really obligated.
It's very thin.
You could ask the guy, hey, can you make a claim on your homeowners? I guess not really, it's not his. But
no, but... Maybe he could.
Yeah, and try to see if his insurance company...
It's somewhat peculiar that it's the only thing missing, but...
Yeah, I get the take that the person who sent us the question thinks it was an inside job, maybe, right? Maybe
but
the guy took it and...
He's so sure of his neighbor's, evil, thieving ways, and yet he left the thing in his... I mean, you can't have it both ways.
Well, you know what? He's going to have to get out his shovel.
Yeah.
Start shoveling the driveway, old school, right?